Hi, welcome to Spec Hunter. Game console reviews are always interesting because the reason most people buy console has little to do with the hardware. It's almost always about the games. Of course, when a new console comes out, we expect it to be better. Higher fidelity graphics, smoother performance, and more features. But at the end of the day, if you're the kind of person who only plays Forza, you are never going to buy a Nintendo Switch. And if you love Mario Kart, then the Switch was the only choice. That's why when we talk about consoles, it's important to remember the hardware itself is just a vessel. What really matters is the library of games. Now, I'm a tech reviewer first. I do play games, but not as much as hardcore gamers. Most of my free time goes into watching YouTube videos, and when I do get downtime, I usually turn to my PlayStation. A little 2K here, some Spider-Man there. So at first glance, my take on the Nintendo Switch might not seem that exciting. But what makes this console fascinating is that it's a second-generation product. And second-generation products are always the most interesting. When Nintendo launched the first Switch back in 2017, the idea was bold. Consoles at that time fell into two categories. You had home consoles like the PlayStation or Xbox that lived in your living room. And you had handheld systems like the Nintendo 3DS or the PlayStation Vita that you carried with you. Nintendo decided to combine the two. A single device that could work as both. You could play it as a handheld with a built-in screen and controls, then dock it to your TV at home and use detachable controllers. A two-in-one gaming system. Risky but brilliant. And the market responded. It was a hit. That's why the second generation matters so much. The first generation proves the idea can work. The second generation shows us the direction the company chooses to go after learning from the first. Nintendo essentially replaced two separate consoles, the Wii U for the living room and the 3DS for handheld gaming, with one hybrid system. That was a huge gamble, but it worked. The Switch became a success, both as a portable and as a home console. So with the Switch 2, the question is, what do you improve? Do you focus more on handheld gaming? Do you push it harder as a living room system? Or do you try to strike the balance right in the middle? The truth is, most two-in-one products aren't amazing at both. Usually one side is sacrificed. But Nintendo didn't have a luxury to ignore either side. Because statistics show people use both. Investor data even said about half of Switch users switch back and forth regularly. Some lean toward handheld, some lean toward TV gaming, but both groups are strong. So Nintendo needed to improve both experiences. And looking at the Switch 2, they clearly worked hard to do that. On the handheld side, the new screen is a huge leap forward. It's larger, it's brighter, it refreshes faster, and it just looks better overall. The bezels are still there, but once you start gaming, you barely notice them. The Joy-Cons, the controllers, also got a big upgrade. They're bigger, sturdier, and much more comfortable. The kickstand is now full width, rock solid, and way better even than the Switch OLED model. For docked gaming, the improvements are just as significant. The new dock can push 4K at 60 frames per second. That's a big jump from the old 1080p. It now supports HDR, which makes colors and contrast pop on modern TVs. Nintendo also added a cooling fan, so the system doesn't overheat during longer gaming sessions. They put a USB-C port on the top of the dock, so you can add accessories without pulling the system out. And one of the best quality of life upgrades. Ethernet is finally built in. Before, players had to buy an adapter just to connect with a wired connection. Now it's standard, and it makes a real difference in online play. So yes, the mission was to make the Switch 2 better for handheld fans, better for dock fans, and still a good hybrid system. I think Nintendo pulled that off. The Joy-Cons especially are worth talking about. Instead of sliding on rails like the first generation, they now snap on with magnets. It's smoother, it feels better, and it's just more fun. You press a button, they detach, and snapping them back on feels natural. Nintendo even added a color-matching animation and sound effect when you connect them. It's one of those small touches that makes the whole experience feel polished. The buttons themselves are better too. The SR and SL buttons on the edges are more usable, especially in two-player mode when you turn the Joy-Con sideways. The controllers are more comfortable for longer sessions. They feel sturdier, and the magnets are strong enough that you don't worry about them falling off. Nintendo also added a new mouse mode. Now, this won't matter much for a lot of games, but it's surprisingly responsive and easy to activate. You can even use it on your jeans or a desk surface. It feels like a preview of features that future games might explore. Nintendo always likes to experiment, and this feature leaves the door open for some creative gameplay ideas down the line. And then there's performance. This is where you see the biggest leap. Old games run better right away. Without any updates, frame rates are higher and more stable. On the first Switch, a game like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk would dip down to 24 or 30 frames per second, making it choppy. On the Switch 2, it's locked at 60. Resident Evil 5, which used to bounce between 30 and 40 frames per second, now runs smoothly at 60. Menus open faster, the eShop feels snappier, and games launch quicker. Even if you don't buy new games, your old library just feels refreshed. That's the power of better hardware. But of course, no console is perfect. And the Switch 2 does have weak points. The biggest is battery life. And really, this shouldn't surprise anyone. A bigger screen, a faster chip, and higher frame rates mean more power draw. In standby mode or with light games, the battery is fine. Sometimes it's even better than the first Switch. But if you crank up the brightness and play a demanding game, the battery drains fast. You can see the percentage drop every couple of minutes. For high-intensity sessions, you might only get 3 hours. For travel, especially flights, that's not ideal. You'll definitely need to plan ahead or bring charger. Then there's the price. The Switch 2 launches at $450. The first Switch was $300. That feels like a big jump. A 50% increase is nothing small. But let's look closer. The first Switch came out in 2017. If you adjust that price for inflation, it's nearly $400 in today's money. So the actual increase isn't as bad as it seems. And remember, it's been 8 years since the first model. A bigger, better display, improved hardware, redesigned Joy-Cons, and all the re-engineering make the price feel fairer when you think about keeping this console for the next 4 or 5 years. Especially when people spend over $1,000 on a new phone every single year. What does make the situation harder is the rising cost of everything else. Accessories are more expensive now. MicroSD Express cards, which are faster and great for loading games, cost a lot. And the biggest hit is games. Standard prices are now $60, $70, even $80 for one title. Even the Welcome Tour game that comes with the system isn't free. It costs $9, even though it feels more like a demo. And in some cases, buying a physical game doesn't even get you the full game. Some cartridges just give you a key and a portion of the files, and you still need to download the rest online. If you don't have internet, you can't even play the game you bought. That's frustrating for players, especially if you travel. Imagine buying a new game, sitting on a plane, and realizing you can't launch it because it wasn't fully downloaded. That's a big downside. Another concern is joystick drift. This was one of the most common complaints about the first Switch. Over time, the joysticks would start drifting, moving the character without input. Many people expected Nintendo to fix this by using Hall effect sensors, which don't suffer from the same problem. But the Switch 2 still doesn't use them. So will drift happen again? Nobody knows yet. Only time will tell. So what does that leave us? It comes back to the point I made in the beginning. It's all about the games. If you're into Call of Duty or other big third-party shooters, this console was never going to be your first choice. But if you love Mario, Zelda, or Pokemon, the Switch 2 is exactly what you've been waiting for. Right now, there aren't a ton of new titles built only for the Switch 2, but Mario Kart World is here, and it's already the most popular launch game. If you grab the bundle for $500, you even save a little money. From TH Air, it's up to you. The Switch 2 is the platform for your next few years of gaming. It's the vessel that will carry the experiences you choose. If you already own a Switch, upgrading means better performance, a sharper screen, improved controllers, and more polish across the board. If you're new to Nintendo, this is the best entry point yet. Just know that the higher price and limited battery life are part of the package. So is the Switch 2 worth it? For most fans of Nintendo, the answer is yes. It does exactly what it needs to do. It makes handheld gaming better, makes docked gaming better, and improves the hybrid experience overall. The downsides are there, but they don't outweigh the upgrades. This is a console built on lessons from the first generation, and it feels like the complete vision Nintendo always wanted for the Switch. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more videos and updates. See you in the next one.